How Elements of Race and Power Exist in the Novel Scarborough by Hernandez. Move on to the next slide. Trigger warning. This novel deals with sensitive topics. Please use discretion when viewing the upcoming content. Move on to the next slide. The novel Scarborough by Hernandez is a fictional novel set in the community of Scarborough that exists here in Toronto. I appreciate that the novel creates a realistic depiction of the Scarborough community by using existing street names and bus routes that one is able to recognize. This image that you see is a screen capture of Google Maps of the area where Hernandez wanted the novel to take place. Over top of the map, the author has drawn in where she imagines the important locations of the novel to be. This includes critical locations like the public school called Rouge Hill, or the Galloway homeless shelter where some of the characters live. Hernandez ensures that everything was logical to the setting, as her references to the 54 bus route make sense since the bus runs along Lawrence East, which is why many of the buildings are near Lawrence. This book explores this diverse community from the many perspectives of its residents. An analysis of the novel reveals how the intricacies of race and power exist in a diverse community. This can be seen through the experiences of a Black man and a South Asian woman. Move on to the next slide. The character of Victor is a clear example of how the complexity of race and power affect this community. Victor is a young Black man who has no criminal ties and is simply painting a mural when two white police officers stop him. These two officers are able to act on their prejudices because of the authority and power they have as being part of the police force. They aggressively question Victor and arrest him with the notion that all Black men are criminals. This incident reflects what is happening in the city today, as a study by the Ontario Human Rights Commission has shown that a Black person in Toronto is nearly 20 times more likely to have a violent encounter with police than a white person. The images of the news articles are all from the past year and indicate that Black men continue to be the victims of police violence. Fortunately, Victor was not injured by police. However, this incident demonstrates how these injustices escalate as a person is mistreated because of their race, and someone who is white is often the perpetrator with the power to get away with it. Move on to the next slide. Similar to Victor, Hina Hassani faces people's prejudices every day as she is a dark-skinned South Asian woman who chooses to wear a hijab. At the public school where she works, a white woman patronizes her for being a Muslim in charge of the Christmas activities, even though it is just part of her job. The woman questions her if Christmas carols will be sung, which she understands that they were not so much questions as they were passive-aggressive white lady demands, as the woman briefly looked at her hijab and then flashed a tight-lipped smile. The white woman tries to belittle Miss Hassani and look down on her, as she clings to the notion that because she is white, she can look down on others who are not, like Miss Hassani. Furthermore, Miss Hassani is threatened by her boss for wearing a hijab because it might affect the neutrality of the workplace. This image of a woman wearing a hijab with the words, "my right, my choice, my life," are a representation of Miss Hassani's values as she wears her hijab with pride. Other people deprecate Miss Hassani because of her race and religious choices, and it is evident that even in a multicultural community, these racial and religious prejudices exist. Move on to the next slide. In conclusion, the novel Scarborough shows how problems stemming from racial injustice and power imbalance persist in a diverse community. This picture of Scarborough shows how the community is not as shiny from the outside in comparison to the high-rises and new buildings of downtown Toronto. I believe this is similar to what Hernandez wanted to show with her book. She did not want to sugarcoat the lives of these characters in the community. While reading this book, one can see the hardships that exist within the community, but also the resilience of the residents that help them overcome the prejudices they face. Thank you for watching and listening to my presentation on the novel Scarborough.